Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing an off topic with Greg and I with our special guest, Adam from Splendid Sports. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the discussion. All right, guys. So got Adam with us tonight from Splendid Sports. Thank you, Adam, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's an honor to be with you here.
Absolutely.
Well, you have quite a big role actually in the whole off-topic programming.
That's true.
Do you want to explain your role, or do you want us to?
Well, it's pretty well. Actually, you explain. I think. Well, what is it? I just left a comment during one of your episodes when you were like, "We go off topic a lot," and I said you should name it off topic, and you did, which was great.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we did a couple of videos, and we just kind of joked about how we would have a topic that we'd start with, and we'd go wherever. And then you said something along the lines of, "You guys go off topic so much, this should be called off topic." And we're like, "That's a great idea."
Yeah.
And so we texted you and said, "I think we're going to go with your name." And you're like, "Great. Now let's have me on too." And we're like, "Great. That's a win-win." So yeah. So appreciate your naming rights and appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for not charging us for that.
Yeah, well, look, when Top sponsors your show and you guys really make it big, just have me on as a guest again. That's all. That's all I ask.
Sure. So, well, today we wanted to have you on because as we have to have a topic to start on, we thought our starting topic. You think for me at least, you think of different people in the community, and they kind of have their thing. Right. You got Dylan with his centering. You got Theo with his Clementes. When I think of you, I think of not that this is all you do, but I think of player collecting and player runs. You're really heavy into Pedro Martinez, which is cool. And you've got some super rare, super awesome looking Pedro stuff. And then you've obviously got a really amazing Mickey Mantle collection. And so we thought it'd be fun to talk about player collecting and player runs, and have the guy that we kind of think of when we think of player runs on as we do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, Adam. So she grew up in the Massachusetts area, right? Massachusetts, New England area, and you grew up a Red Sox fan, but the first main player run you put together is Mickey Mantle, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that just ties back to my dad. When I was a kid, he would just fill my head with stories of not just Mickey Mantle, but Mickey Mantle was really the one that kind of stood out the most and what I remembered the most. That was his favorite player. He was a Red Sox fan too, but even Red Sox fans liked Mickey Mantle back then. So, yeah. It's just, that's kind of what stuck with me. And that's the player that I started collecting first, as an older person when I got back into it. And those were the cards that I always wanted when I was a kid. So it kind of made sense. And yeah, I look back, and I think I always was a player collector at heart, because I look back at some of my binders with the plastic sheets, and I wouldn't organize them by team. I would just do it by player. So I'd have a page for Canseco, a page for, Boggs. So I would just organize all the cards as a player. So maybe whatever it is, it was always kind of in me to just collect more so based on player than even so team. I don't know.
Yeah. And conversely, it's interesting because I grew up a Yankee fan, but my guy was Clemens.
Right.
And I think my dad probably shook his head a lot, but then he saw how much I loved Clemens that I think he started rooting for Clemens. Even though he was a Yankee fan. Now, with that, it's interesting. What do Red Sox fans think of Derek Jeter?
I hated Jeter when I was younger, because he was kicking our butt all the time, and I just didn't want to see him get up to the plate,
Mm-hmm.
when he was facing the Red Sox. So a lot of it was just anger and frustration that I think a lot of Boston fans at the time didn't love Jeter. They probably hated Jeter. But I think more and more now, like me, I appreciate Jeter now, because I'm kind of past it now. And I look back and I see Jeter for what he was now. At the time, I was kind of blinded by the passion of being a Red Sox fan versus the Yankees. And, 2004 had a lot to do with that. It kind of lifted some stress off a lot of people.
So it's funny you say that, because as a Yankees fan, and my whole family's Yankees fans, we actually went to Jeter's last game at Fenway. And I probably will never say this again, but the Red Sox fans that were there that day was a classy bunch.
Yeah.
For sure. They
an ovation.
Multiple standing ovations.
Yep.
Nobody, I think like one or two people booed him, and other Red Sox fans would like yell at him.
Right.
And they treated him with the utmost respect. They brought like a bunch of old school Red Sox out. It was really, really cool. And it was actually just kind of, to me, it was funny, right? It's, Jeter's last game ever was in Fenway, right? Didn't finish his career at Yankee Stadium. He finished it at Fenway. And I would even say that the Red Sox playing that day were nice, because his last hit was an absolute simple throw out at first, and they, he was safe. He got a single, right? But yeah, it was super cool, and I was very impressed by how the Red Sox fans treated him, and how the Red Sox organization kind of set up the whole thing for him that day. It was really cool.
Well, I was going to ask you that, Darren. Who would you say, like, it was a Jeter? Like, who was your guy when you were? I think we're all around the same age. So in the 90s or late 80s, 90s, when I know that was like maybe 90s, early 2000s. That's when I was into baseball the most, watching every game. Did you have a certain player that was your favorite? Was it Jeter back then?
So I would say when I first got into baseball, my favorite player was Mattingly.
Okay.
And then it slowly kind of morphed into Nolan Ryan. And I always liked Nolan Ryan, but then once he retired, I didn't really watch much baseball kind of after Nolan Ryan retired, before Jeter. So I would say, yeah, Jeter was my guy back then.
Okay. Because that's one of the reasons I went back to collect Pedro. Is for me, it's like, I look at my collection, a big part of it is commemorating my life as a sports fan. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't never watch Mickey Mantle play, but I have the connection to him. I also collect Tom Brady and Larry Bird. You can understand why, being from Boston. So those are my other two big players that I collect. And then Pedro, that was like the peak of my, if I think back of like as a Red Sox fan, those years when he was with the Red Sox, culminating in 2004, that was my favorite time. And I don't really watch much baseball now, but when I think back to like my golden era of baseball, it was those years, probably like 98 to 2004. That was my golden era right there. So it's a lot of fun to go back and collect some of his rare cards from that period of time. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love how you just described that too, because cards are nostalgic, and they do bring us back to different periods of time. And I totally get honoring your dad with the Mantle thing. My dad was obviously a Mantle guy too. I hated Pedro, but I hated Pedro. I mean, Pedro was so good. And that's one of the reasons that I hated him, is because he was just, his stuff was so nasty. But also, he was so boisterous about he was just kind of like, he'd make faces and he'd do things that he's like the guy where if he's on your team, you just absolutely eat it up. And if he's not on your team, you're like, that punk. But I do respect the phenomenal talent that he was. He was phenomenal. I went to the first Yankee game I ever went to was against the Red Sox. And we sat in the right field bleachers. And the thing that I was expecting is I was expecting the rivalry to be, see how off topic we already are?
Oh, yeah.
But I was expecting the rivalry to be like nasty, like mean. And like whenever the Red Sox would do something bad or the Yankees would do something good, they'd start chanting 1918, Red Sox suck. But it was like kind of tongue-in-cheek laughing. And then I went to one game at Fenway, and it was against the Yankees. And I wore a Clemens jersey, and I think I've shown you a picture, actually, Adam, and a Yankees hat. And when I was like going up to get hot dogs and beer and stuff, I would be up there. The Red Sox fans would just shake their head and be like, "Ah, freaking Yankee fans," you know. It wasn't like mean. It was kind of like a mutual respect. At least it was at that time with both sides, because both teams were really good, and there was a respect, which I thought was interesting. It's not what I expected out here in the West Coast. I went to a lot of A's games because that's where the Yankees would play when they were in town, and the A's fans were, man, they were brutally rough. Like, I had multiple times people would get in my face and stuff, and I'm like, dude, what are we doing? It was never like that. So
I was
I
just
thought
saying,
that's
when
interesting.
the 49ers and the Raiders, like, didn't they have the thing where, like, they
Oh yeah,
had at some of those games, the 49ers and Raiders fans would, like, put
they'd
guys
have to.
as
They had to
yeah,
stop playing in the preseason.
they put them in
Be,
comas and stuff.
yeah,
Guys
yeah,
are
there was.
violent out there in San Francisco. Maybe more
Yeah,
cosmopolitan, like New York and Boston, huh?
Well,
yeah,
I'll tell you, Greg Clemens is another guy that I've kind of saw, like Jeter. There was a period of time where I couldn't stand. Like, I loved Clemens when he was with the Red Sox,
yeah,
and then he left, and obviously, I just think of him throwing the bat at Piazza. That's probably like that's his Pedro Zimmer moment. The people don't like him talk
yeah,
about,
yeah.
but now I look back and, like, I'm starting, kind of like with Barry Bonds, I'm starting to really appreciate Clemens again.
I got to show you something. I don't know. I mean, I know
And by
everybody
the way,
loves.
before you bring that up, a card Greg, I am challenging you, maybe at the National, but a card that you need to get. And I know you're going to say it's expensive, but if you really look at it, it's kind of like the price of what you'd pay for like a pre-war card, a nice pre-war card.
Okay.
You need the 93 finest refractor of Clemens. You got to get that card. That's like one of Clemens's best cards right there.
I will check it out.
And that's a first refractor set, so it's a card that's going to only go up in value, in my opinion. I'm not an investing guru or anything, but
right.
I see that's like the 52 top set for modern cards. So I think your investment will be safe there, and it's just an awesome card. And he's in a Red Sox uniform, so it's even better.
There you go, Greg.
Well,
I actually looked at the Ryan from that set, and when I saw the price, I fell out of my chair.
Those
Yeah,
cards
that
have
one's a lot
gotten
more than
so expensive. Oh, here it is. I'm sitting here running around looking for a card, and it's sitting right in front of my face. I had to show you this because you said it. So a viewer sent this card to me. So it's from the game of the Piazza Clemens incident, and it's a piece of the base. It's a game-used base from that World Series game.
See, that's someone gave you that?
Somebody gave that to me.
Followers.
Isn't that awesome?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's when they used to tell you the game. Yeah, they don't do those anymore when they tell you the exact game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, 10/22, 2000. All right, so now that we're 13 minutes in, we can start kind of talking about our topic. So we know that you're Pedro, Mantle, Brady, and Bird are kind of your big four. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and then I sprinkle in, like, I want to have at least one or two Jackie Robinson cards. I limit myself to 4 on some of these other players like Ted Williams and Willie Mays for their playing days cards. Mm-hmm. And I might have to whittle that down even to like 2 eventually. But I want to at least have some representation of them in my collection. But if you looked at my overall collection, I don't know how many cards I have, but those 4 guys are probably a big percentage of all the cards I have. Yeah.
Now, Darren, tell us, what are some of the guys that you PC like that?
So right now I have 2 player runs that are more or less done for what I'm looking to do. Like Ryan, if I were to buy every card he had, I think he has like 50,000 cards or something. So I basically went with his top space cards. Mm-hmm. So I've got this case here. That's his 70 through his 94. And then actually, let me take him out of the plastics. So I got the Ryans. Here's 2 of my favorites. Here's there's the rookie.
Ooh.
And then there's the 69. So I collect Ryans. And
Now, as we breeze over this, because I know a lot of people like to listen. So what Darren just showed was a 1969 Topps Nolan Ryan, his first single card in a PSA 9.
Mhm.
And then he showed a Kuzman Ryan 68 rookie card in an SGC 96. So back when SGC was on a 100-point scale, and they didn't really do I don't think they did half grades then, did they?
No, I think that back then a 96 was a 9 and a 98 was a 10.
So I've been trying to get Darren to bring this into SGC and try to get it to be a 9.5 because are there 0 10s, Darren?
No, I think there's one PSA 10 and there was only one SGC 10. I think there's 2 now.
And then there's a couple of 9.5s.
Yeah, there's a few 9.5s. Yeah, I think there's like 4 of them or something. 5.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's a massive card. Which, by the way, I do have to say, part of the theft that happened recently, I don't know for sure when this will post, but happened very recently of one of the big dealers, Ash. One of the cards in the case was the Seaver SGC 10. Was in the case, which is, an $80,000-$90,000 card. Now, Darren, who else do you play or collect besides just Nolan Ryan?
So this year I finished my run for DiMaggio. I say finished. We never really finish, right? So
you don't, no worldwide gum yet.
Don't have the worldwide gum. I have basically his 38 Gaudy heads up with the scribbles through his 52 Burke Ross. So I have all of his primary playing days cards. So I don't have the worldwide gum, and then I also don't have some of his. I guess that's a Canadian issue. I don't have some of his Canadian issue plus there's the Z-Nut cards when he played in the minor leagues, and then he had he had a couple of Canadian issue cards in I think 36, 37 on top of the worldwide gum. So I don't have those, but from his I would say from the PSA basic registry, I've got all of them, with the exception I don't have the 38 non-scribble. And I've been debating whether or not I make the investment of buying that card, because it's sort of like one I already have. And, I'm like, well, should I buy that? Or I could pick something else up that's kind of completely different. So
it's a parallel card. One of the first parallel cards.
There you go.
It's true. It's true.
Now we got a decent look at the 38 heads up, but we didn't get a very good look at the 39 play ball that you had there. Let's see that. Oh yeah, I love that.
Love that. Awesome.
That's actually my favorite DiMaggio card, and that is a card that I am going to have on my short list in Cleveland here in a couple weeks.
So when I bought this one, I literally didn't have it on my list. I was at a Denver card show, and there was one vintage dealer, and he had a bunch of different cards I was looking at, and I had like a stack of 3 or 4 cards. And I'm like, I think this is what I'm going to do. And then he's like, oh, and he pulls this one. It wasn't even in the case. He pulled it out of a box. He's like, what about this one? And I was like, put the other ones back.
Yeah. All right. Well,
one of the downsides of being a real heavy player collector like me is at some point, you can't have a card of every one you want to have. Like, for example, I don't have any DiMaggio cards, playing days cards. I don't have a Lou Gehrig card. So there's guys like that maybe if I continue on this path without making a change in the collection, I may never have a card of those guys because I went so deep into Mantle. And I mean, Mantle is the top baseball as far as price goes, I would say. Brady is football. Bird is not Michael Jordan, but he's up in the top whatever, as far as retired players, maybe top 10 or something. And that's why sometimes it's refreshing with Pedro, is because not that many people like him, at least yet. Some of his cards are not that expensive compared to that same card in a Jeter is 50 times the price, in the 90s. So some of that's kind of refreshing. It's nice. I needed that.
Now, can you show us a couple of your Pedro cards if you have anything handy?
Yeah.
And as you're doing that, I have a question for you. So,
Sure.
one of the things that as collectors, when we're spending decent money on some of these cards, we want to be buying cards that we think have some upward trajectory. And like you just mentioned about Pedro, you're like, well, not a ton of people collect him, so he's kind of affordable. How does that play into your collect? Like, there's always going to be a demand for Bird and Brady and Mantle. I'm not saying that there won't be for Pedro. There very well might be, and I think that there are a lot of people who appreciate his talents. Is it at all harder to spend bigger money on Pedro, where there's a little bit less certainty that it's going to be a card that will grow in popularity, or do you just say, I don't care because I love Pedro and I want this card?
Well, it's a mix of both. I would never say that, any card that I buy that's good money, I have the hope that it will at least hold its value over time. So I would never say I don't care about values. That's always factored in when I'm spending, if it's a $5 card, okay, whatever. It's just a cool card. I want to have it. But when you're spending like with a card like this, now I worked a trade for this, but this is Pedro's first PMG. He's got only 2.
Wow.
So this is his. Get it better. This is 1998 Metal Universe Precious Metal Gems, and doesn't really do it justice, but it's a cool, cool design to it. And this is a parallel card, and it's numbered to 50. So there's only 50 of these out there. And so with a card like that, I feel very confident, not really even because of Pedro, but more so because of the card, the PMG. The PMG brand. Insert whatever player you want. I feel like those are gonna carry value in the future. Maybe less in the future, but they're not going to zero. I know, I'm pretty confident of that. So that's, I think, a big difference when a lot of people talk modern cards and the gamble. There's a difference between an active player modern card versus a player who's retired that was numbered to 50. And in this set, there was the base card, and then there was this parallel numbered to 50. So there wasn't 50 different parallels. It was the base card and this. Mm-hmm. So, that's when you ask, like, why do those sell for so much money? Well, it's because of that. It's because there's a multi-sport appeal too. There's PMGs in basketball and football. So you'll have people that know nothing about baseball, but they'll see this card and they'll be like, oh, that's awesome. It's a PMG. They don't even know who Pedro is, but it's kind of like type collecting in a way, certain way. That's and cool. I get to combine it with a player that I want to collect. So I feel good about the money I spent on the card. And also, it's a Pedro card who was my favorite player. So it's cool.
Nice. Hey, let me ask you guys, I'm going to bring out my inner Chris from Missouri. What button do I press on here to make it single screen so I could show, when you show cards, it shows up at like full screen?
So you hover over him on the bottom. There's the little smaller screens at the bottom.
Oh, and then just hit solo layout?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay.
So yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Yeah. Now, excuse my complete ignorance, Adam. Because I know I've heard of PMGs. I know they're beautiful cards. I know they're insanely popular. What is a PMG of a Pedro Martinez? What's the approximate value of a card like that?
See, this is a tough one because I don't know of one that sold publicly other than one that I was told sold for like, I think over 10,000. I didn't pay anywhere near that. And I never would, but yeah, like this one, I think the last time it sold publicly sold for over 10,000 in the auction.
Oh my gosh.
So, and you're talking insert Barry Bonds into that card or Derek Jeter or Ken Griffey Jr. A lot more. So, yeah. Now, I made a trade. I would say the value of the trade I made was valued at maybe a couple thousand, like 2,000, something like that. I traded with another collector. And that's the thing with these cards. The reason a lot of them don't sell publicly is because most of these change hands privately, like over social media, or there's like a network. Like I know of maybe 5 to 10 Pedro collectors on Instagram that all go after the same cards like me. And, we've made deals together. So when you're trying to move a Pedro card, generally like this, you wouldn't put it up for auction on eBay. You would just message the community, that you connected with. And it's the same for all the guys, Frank Thomas, all the 90s legends. Greg Maddux is another pitcher that has a good collector base. So it's pretty fun. It's different. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I participate in all eras really of the hobby. I have cards from all eras, but it's just a lot different than the process of vintage or some of these other eras with 90s.
Is that your only, or is that your best Pedro card, or do you have other Pedro cards that are up there?
Yeah, I would say this is the best one. This, the PMG, the brand, it's numbered to 50, and he's only got 2 PMGs, and the 98 was his first one. So for unless you're talking one of ones and stuff, but if you're talking a player through the 90s, a lot of people consider the 98 PMG to be the top card of 90s players through that time period.
Now, what do you say to, because there are some people who vocally are anti anything modern, which definition of modern is, up to each individual. When people say, oh no, the shiny, sparkly stuff, the new stuff, because I know you collect some of the newer stuff, and what is the counter argument to those guys?
I don't. That's the thing is I don't know. I mean, they're all cards. I think the biggest thing, as I'll say again, like I said before, is there's a huge, when you lump in 2024 cards, with cards from the 90s or even the 2000s. I think this is a period of time after the junk wax era, from the mid 90s, really for a long period of time after that. The hobby was pretty dead. It wasn't like it is now, and it wasn't like it was in junk wax era. So a lot of these cards, they didn't stay. A lot of them got thrown out. So there's 50 of these Pedro cards. If you look on the pop report, there's probably been maybe 10 ever graded of the 50. Some are out there raw, but a lot of them are just thrown out or just lost, or because at the time this set wasn't, this was like $1 a pack set metal. It wasn't like a high-end product. But it just over time it became I guess iconic in that era, as well as some other ones. There's a bunch of different ones. Essential Credentials. A lot of it's parallels. People say it's the 90s insert era, but for me it's not really the insert cards. An insert card is it's not a base card. It's a different image. It's a totally separate card in the set. With a parallel card, those are the Essential Credentials, PMGs, Star Rubies. Those are cards that basically they're a parallel. They look like the base card, but they have something different about them with the same photo. That's really the biggest cards in that era, and they're in sets where they might be the only parallel in the whole set. So that's why they're so expensive. Where in 2024 you might have a whatever set, and then there's 50 different parallels of the base card in the set. So I think that gets mixed up with some of these type of sets where they're just two different ball. I compare this more to pre-war than I do modern stuff with the way they're scarce, and you have type collectors, people who they don't care the player, they just want whatever, a Star Rubies, or this is a 24 karat gold card of Pedro. So it's a Fleer set from 1999, and there was a base card. And then there was a few parallels, like a blue and a gold, and then a 24 karat gold, which is numbered to 24. So there's 24 copies of this card on Earth. So it doesn't take, just like I've heard people with pre-war say, it doesn't take a lot of people to want a card of a pre-war card if there's 30 of them that exist for the price to hold. Same with this, with these type of cards, there's 24 of them. So you don't need a million people that want a Pedro card for that card to hold its value.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because I think one of the areas, and I think people should just collect whatever they enjoy collecting. So if you like modern, go for it. Like brand new modern, even, right? Go for it. I was doing last year. I was doing a bunch of pack breaks of modern stuff. But I think one of the differences, like you said, Adam, is when they first started coming out with the parallel cards like that back in the 90s, they were actually rare, versus now it's like, oh, I have a one of 10 of this player, but then Topps made 4 different versions of a 1 of 10 of this player, but they also have a 1 of, out of 30, out of 50, out of 100. So I think now it's like it's tougher, right? Because you watch some of these pack breaks, or even when I went to Cards HQ when I was in Atlanta, in the pack break area, there's literally like a humongous trash can, and when they open the pack of cards, it's like, unless it's a parallel, it's like base card trash, 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 and it's like, whoa, like when we used to collect, even when in like the early '90s, when they first started coming out with parallels, you wouldn't view it that way, right? You wouldn't say, oh, cool, like here's a Pedro card or a Clemens card, but it's a base. You'd see like, oh, cool, like when I open a pack of 86 tops, and I'm like, it's a Hall of Famers card. I keep it, put it in the plastics. It's like, oh, cool, right? I think now, I think one of the things now, I think that some vintage people take issue with is the fact that if something's popular, Topps will just make more of it, and then they'll just continue to give it the same numbering scheme. But it's like, this is the whatever version out of 10, and here's like 6 other parallels out of 10 for the same player. So it kind of dilutes the value of even some of the numbered cards that are out of higher numbers, right?
Yep. And I, like I said too, I think active players versus retired players or players that aren't around anymore, that's a big difference, because one of the biggest criticisms I hear with modern is people are wasting their money, and you can waste money, so to speak, with active players, because there's so much fluctuation dependent on performance and stuff. But Roger Clemens and Derek Jeter and Pedro Martinez, I only see more appreciation for those guys because they're not going to make any more bad plays. They've cemented themselves, and there's a whole generation of people that watch them play. That we always say, "Oh, I never saw this guy play Mickey Mantle or Babe Ruth or Al Kaline or Ty Cobb," and it's true. They're going to hold value too, but I think there is something with watching a player play. If I got to watch Mickey Mantle play, I would like him even more, probably. So I think there's something to that as well.
Yeah, I agree. Being able to see him play is a big deal. It's kind of funny. I had a commenter on a video I did, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months ago. The video was about Gehrig, and the person commented, "How can you say Gehrig was good if you didn't see him play?"
Yeah.
And there's people that, and it took me a second I had to walk through with my wife to get a better, she's good when I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. And she's like, look at it from somebody else's perspective this way. I'm like, oh, thank you. Okay. And it made sense, right? It's like, if somebody asks, you talk to, like, literally, I made a video about a player, and one of the quotes in the video about the player was, about 20 years after he retired, I stopped talking about him because people didn't believe it or understand it. If you didn't see him play, you really didn't get it, right? And I can see that. So for us, like the guys that are our age that are back into collecting, we might buy some vintage stuff because we like vintage, but the players that you're talking about, those are the guys we grew up watching, and it's cool to be able to buy rarer cards of those players now because we could afford to do that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the players, we kind of, the impression we had of them, like Clemens and Pedro, and we know their rookie cards came during the mass-produced era. So I could always get his cards. They're all out. There's a billion of them. But then you go a little further in, where I stopped collecting in '95. So like I'm not nostalgic for this time period of the mid '90s to the mid 2000s, but I am very interested in it because I missed it. I totally missed it. I was going through school and stuff. So that's when I stopped collecting. So now being able to go back and learn all about all these sets that I had no clue about, it's fun. And it's very similar to what I've heard people say with pre-war, like going back and learning all about all the different sets. It's the same idea, and I like all eras. Like, I don't want it to come off like I'm only modern now and I'm
no.
It's just I like all eras. I find something interesting about each one. I like to collect a few pre-war cards just from certain sets. I can't spend too much because I devote a lot of money elsewhere, but I'll buy like a common player in 1915 Cracker Jack, something like that, just to have one. That's kind of how I approach the other eras.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, so let's take a look if you have any of your Mantles handy. Now, when you're going through, your
As you pull
eBay.
up those mantles, real quick, I just want to shout out to Scott.
Reindeer
Scott from Reindeer
Studios.
Studios. He oh wait, here I could click this for myself too. There we go. So I just got this from Scott. He made 2 copies. One was the giveaway for the 4 collectors for Hobbypalooza. And then he had a second copy of it. So I picked this one up from him. So thanks, Scott. This is awesome. My wife loves it. But anybody that is interested in really cool baseball art, check out Scott's reindeer, his Etsy store. It's Reindeer Studios. He made this shirt, Eat the Gum. Yeah, and the midlife shirt that Greg has on. But yeah, he does really, really cool art. And probably my favorite mantelpiece in my collection now is that painting that I bought for my wife.
That's awesome.
He's a very talented guy, and he's a super great guy too.
Yes.
Now, so show us a couple of Mantle cards that stick out for you, and I'm curious, as somebody who collects some semi-modern, I guess we would call it modern stuff, which is beautiful in a different regard. What's the feeling like? Do you get more excitement when you pick up the Mantle, or when you pick up the Pedro 24 karat gold, or is it different, or is it the same? Like, how does it? Because I'm learning from you right now on these newer inserts. I think they're gorgeous. It's interesting to me. I don't know anything about any of it, but I'm curious, as somebody who collects, like you said, different eras. Is there an extra jolt of enthusiasm from one over the other?
No, they're both equally awesome, but for different reasons, kind of like what you were saying. And one of the things I've realized over the last few years, when I came back into the hobby, I was very like more sports fan, fan of these players, really like knew history and stuff like that. But when I've been in the hobby now, I find myself even being like maybe equally or sometimes even more like into the history of the hobby and the history of cards. So like, for example, yeah, it's a Mickey Mantle. I picked this up at the National last year. This is a 59 Bazooka Mantle, authentic. And this was like one of my big pickups the big pickup at the National. And it's hard to see, but it's got, shout out to Mookie, pinholes in it.
Oh, nice.
Got at least one. It's got like 2 or 3 pinholes, one right at the top there.
Oh yeah.
So clearly some kid maybe had this pinned to their wall, and at the time had no clue that it would be ever worth any money. There's a blank back. They came right off the box. So it was just I got more into like I started getting into like the food and beverage stuff and the oddball stuff. So I look at that and I just think about like the history of it, where it came from. I love the fact that there was no money thought when they had that pinned up to the wall. Like, hey, this is going to be worth whatever, a couple $1,000 someday. So I think that's a really cool story. And then it's a different thing with the more modern stuff. It's just kind of like the rarity and the patterns and the technology behind the cards, and just how no one thought these would be, in a way, no one thought those were going to be worth that much money either when they were coming out, because the hobby was kind of dead, and they had no clue that those type of cards would rise in price. So I kind of like that. I like cards that came from, like, cards now people are opening them up with money in mind, and I think some of us did that in the junk wax era too. Like, hey, maybe this Conseco rookie be worth money someday. But there's different periods where it wasn't that big of a thought, or the hobby wasn't as popular. So those tend to seem like they become the most valuable in the end. So.
And it's interesting, as you say that, and I'm listening to you talk about it, and I'm wondering, you've put together like the base run of Mantle stuff, and then you don't feel like, okay, I'm done with Mantle. You say, okay, now what are the other things, like the Bazooka and the, there's so many, the Red Hearts, and there's a lot of different things out there.
Yep.
do you feel like there are a lot of Mantle cards out there that you still need to add to the collection,
Yeah.
or will you ever be done?
No, I mean, it'll probably never be done. But yeah, it may come a time where I have to make some sacrifices, where I'll have to, if I want to add a dandy mantle, I might have to sell off some of the base run because with Mickey Mantle, you just can't keep going. Well, most people can't, and I can't. So, I added here and there, I'll add like a Jello card, 1962 Jello mantle.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's plenty more of these. There's, like you said, like I said, Dan D, Stallmeyer's. But then you're approaching like 52 mantle prices with some of those
Yeah,
cards.
Stallmeyer's and the tip top bread.
Yeah. So if I ever wanted to, I'd probably have to sell the 52 mantle and then go into the, some of those other ones if you can find them. So,
right.
Don't say that again.
No.
Yeah.
Religious. Sell the 52 mantle.
I may someday. I may. We'll see. It's a lot of money to have one card. So
true.
Yeah, it's fun to just have. You never know how long you'll have any. I don't plan to, but again, I like having cards where I feel as confident as you can. They are cards, so there's no like guarantee, but as confident as you can that they'll at least be somewhat near the price you paid for them down the road. And do you mind if I go off topic real quick, because I want to ask you guys a question?
We'd love it.
Yeah.
Kind of thinking about that. I know, Greg, I watched your episode with your dad that you had on recently.
Yeah.
And I had my dad on my channel pretty recently too. And I've been thinking about this, like a lot of the guys on YouTube, at least, some similar backgrounds as far as like, there's other guys whose dads collected cards like yours, Greg. Then there's guys like my dad who he had some cards when he was a kid, but as an adult, he never collected or anything like that. Darren, I think did your dad collect cards or no?
Yeah, he collected. He sold the collection about 10 years ago, and now he's kind of getting back into it.
So you guys got the card background too with the sports. Mine's a little cards, like just like stories from childhood, but most of it is just like sports, being a sports fan. And then you got people like Dylan, who, when we were talking, he was like, my parents, not only were they not into cards, they knew nothing about sports. There was like no influence whatsoever. But I mean, is there anyone who loves cards more than Dylan? No, right. I don't think so. So it's just interesting to me. Like, what do you guys think? Is there a magic formula? It doesn't seem like there is for like, whether it's family or what influence a person has that will lead them to be a collector down the road. There's so many different paths. I don't really see like one similar story, as far as like, oh, if your dad's into cards, you're definitely going to be in cards. Or if your dad's into sports, you're definitely going to find your way into sport. It just seems like it's kind of random.
I agree with you. I mean, I have a slew of kids, and none of them really are into it. And my daughter, I think she collects Yogi Berra, Michael Jordan, and Aaron Judge. I think because she knows that I like it, and as she's getting older now, she's less like I'll pick something up for her to show every once in a while, and she thinks it's cool. But obviously, she's getting less into it. So like I agree. Like I think if you have a parent, if you have a parent that's way into it, you might not care at all. Or like in Dylan's case, you have parents that are like whatever across the board, and you're like, well, wait, this is super cool. I don't think that there's any sort of kind of baseline for it. I think that it's just, you start doing it and you're either passionate about it or you're not.
Yeah. There are certain people in this world who attach emotions to items. Like I've had my kids have gotten shirts from their grandpa when he went to Monterey, and he gives it to them, and then it's way too small and they don't want to throw it away because grandpa gave me that shirt. The stuffed animal in the closet, we don't want to toss it because it's my stuffed animal. Then I remember where I got it. And then there's other people in this world who don't have emotional attachment to stuff. And I don't know what makes one person one way or the other, but the people who tend to collect tend to attach the memories to the things, how you got cards and the memories that you had as a kid getting cards and how it made you feel, and you want to re-experience that. It's the whole thing like that the movie Toy Story. You know, it's like the reason a lot of people relate to that is because you're like, oh, I can't throw away my Woody. That was my best bud, you know, and you're my Buzz Lightyear. And so I think one of the ingredients that people need is that piece of attaching emotion to stuff, and that's why they want to collect it. Um, I think sentimental people, you know, tend to want to collect because it brings them back to a time and it reminds them of things. You know, I just recorded a video today that's going to post on Wednesday, so probably after this. And somebody asked me about a question about what is the most meaningful card in my collection. And the card is worth like $1. And I show it and I talk about why it's meaningful, but it's only like $1 card. Like if you were going to take my collection, that would be one of the last cards I'd want you to take. So I think that might have something to do with it too. But what puts that in us, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough because you hear all the stuff about with fanatics and they're gonna marketing and like I'm in my head I'm always like, can you create a collector, like a serious collector? Like you can get someone to buy a pack or whatever, but like people that are eventually gonna spend good money on cards and like really live and breathe it. You know, I don't know. Can you create that or does it just happen? I don't know. I think a lot about that because then you like Greg on your video today that I was watching, you know, when you're talking about what, you know, the future and guys, you know, vintage, is it going to carry? I mean, the age old question that I always love talking about because we never will have an answer until we're actually 30 years from now. It will be interesting to find out, but it's just, yeah, I think about that because it's just interesting to me. Like maybe you can try, but it's just either happens or it doesn't. And things are a lot different than they used to be. Like when we were kids, there was no internet, you know, so there was like, I couldn't watch John Mangini on YouTube or anything and be educated. It was all just word of mouth stuff. So whether it's your parents or whoever, family, other family, friends, that's kind of where you learn stuff about these guys. So in one way, it's like the kids have more access now to the past if they want to, but there's also so much more information out there, so much more to watch and to consume social media that I feel like less of that's getting done now. The past being passed on when it comes to like baseball specifically, because I hear that it seems like I hear that a lot where it's parents now are saying like, you know, I'm a big collector, but my kids want nothing to do with it. I feel like I hear that a lot more so than like my kids want to collect too, because I mean, there's definitely kids, but I just don't feel like maybe it's translating at a rate that it was in our generation. But that's just, I don't know. I just think,
yeah, I see the same thing. It's funny. I watched, I can't remember the channel, but I watched an interview with Marshall Fogel the other day.
Yeah.
And they asked him about that. They said, what do you think of, you know, fanatics trying to market more to kids? And he made a valid point. He said, some of the kids now that are opening packs and, you know, starting their collections, these are the kids that in, you know, 30 years will be spending $250,000 on a Mickey Mantle card. I was like, yeah, that's true. I mean, they got to get into it, you know, they got to get into it somehow. And I think, honestly, I think it was like us, right? Like, I think we have an appreciation for the hobby because when we first started collecting, we would just buy packs and get cards and collect the cards and enjoy the cards. And then when you would go to like a card show or a card shop, you'd see some of the cards that we have now in our collections in the case and be like, wow, that'd be cool someday to have one of those.
But now, like when our generation, when we got money, we're going back and buying that Mickey Mantle card. But now the future, they're going to have, all right, they still got the same $50,000. Are they going to go back and buy that Mickey Mantle card or are they going to spend it on Derek Jeter? Now they got an extra layer that wasn't there for us, you know, or for younger people. So there's going to be more options too. So, you know, it's just, I love thinking about it because it's fun because we'll never know. No matter what you think, it's going to get played out either way, but no one really knows the answer. That's why it's kind of fun to think about.
Yeah, it's super fun to think about and speculate on. You know, I remember we were my daughters are 18 months apart, 20 months apart, and what happened was we went to like a California mission. So out in California, there was like the the Catholic Church was expanding through building churches up along like Monterey and Salinas and LA, San Diego. All the sands were saint. It's anyway.
Yeah.
So what happened is we were at a mission, and my youngest daughter, Lucy, who at the time would have been like second grade, so 7, and we were at a mission, and she was just blown, like the look on her face when she saw the artifacts in this mission. She's like, that's the actual, hammer that they used to build this like 200 years ago. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh my God, like this is the actual dinner plate that they used. And it was like, she was so like appreciative of a historical artifact. And that wasn't taught. Like she was expressing interest in that before she could have learned that was something you should be interested in, and I think that's one of the things that they're trying to touch on with doing the autographs and with doing the relics of a piece of a jersey from Babe Ruth. It's like they're trying to also grab some of the people that have an appreciation for that. So even if you don't really care about Babe Ruth, or you can say, but this was on the most famous player in the world, in 1930, which is almost 100 years ago. Like that's kind of amazing. And so I think that hopefully is going to be a way to introduce some of the history to people. And somebody else mentioned something in a comment on one of my videos the other day that I thought was a really, really good comment. And do you guys remember, I don't know if you had this game as a kid, but in Nintendo, there was the game Baseball Stars.
Oh yeah. That was the best.
And you could like make your team and build up their power, and you could make your friends on it and stuff, and like have this season where you'd build them. Well, one of the teams back then was like this. It was like this veteran team. There was like a Babe Ruth player, and there was like a Ty Cobb player, and it introduced it in the games. And someone was saying the other day that on the MLB The Show, that now there's a team that you can use the players or something. And I don't remember if I think it was the Negro League players. So these players who have kind of been off the radar a little bit, bringing them into the forefront for the youth. And that almost feels to me like if these kids that are really into the video games can start to see, oh my gosh, who's this guy, Josh G, who's a catcher and has insane power and hitting ability. Every time I swing, I get a hit. Like those are the sorts of ways that you can kind of sneak into their subconscious about the history. And it could start affecting. I thought it was a brilliant comment, and teach some of these kids about some of these things that we, that's the way you reach this generation is through stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. Make it new. Like I've got this. So this is the 2011 Diamond Anniversary Babe Ruth, right? It's like, okay, cool. It's a Babe Ruth card. So like you get the card, the kid gets the card. They're like, okay, whatever. It's a Babe Ruth card. Obviously it's not, real. It's a Babe Ruth card, 80 years after he died, or 60, 70 years after he died, right? But then what's cool is on the back, it has all of his stats, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then the kids look at it and say, holy crap, look at that. He led the league in home runs 12 times. He led the league in, some of these, like in OPS, right? Talk a lot about OPS these days compared to like when we were kids. And it's like, oh, wow, he led the league in OPS 13 times. Wow. Like that's the kind of thing where they see it. It's kind of like the relic cards, right? It's something where they see the card and they're like, wow, that guy was like, old people talk about this person, but they're like, huh, nobody today has league leader stats like that. So I think they do a pretty good job of trying to bring that out. And, but then at the same time, I think it also some of the stuff they do could frustrate kids trying to get in the hobby, where they're like, oh, cool, I got a Mike Trout card. And then their friends are like, oh, that's just the base. And they're like, bleh, right? And so
Mookie says something to me all the time that I think is, whenever I show my pirate cards that I collect, they're from the 1880s. And I'm like, I almost make fun of myself because I'm like, I think everyone probably thinks I'm an idiot for liking these things. But I like them for the same reason that Lucy was enthralled with the artifacts at the mission. Is it's like, this is old and beautiful, and it's partly beautiful because it's old. And he says to me whenever I show one of those, he goes, are you kidding me? Somebody who fought in the Civil War could have pulled that later in their life out of a pack of cigarettes. Someone who fought in the Civil War. It's like, when you start putting like perspective on it like that, you're like, oh my gosh, like that's pretty amazing that this piece of paper lasted with this image that looks this good. Like that's part of it that is intriguing to me about the old stuff. So I think some kids have it in there. I think that they are born with that appreciation of that stuff, but it maybe hasn't made its way to cards yet. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. But like you said, Adam, I want cards to at least hold value. I don't buy them as an investment, but it would be nice to think that if I decided I didn't want it anymore, I could get my money out. It's like buying gold. But I would buy them even if they didn't hold their value. I just may not spend quite as much on it.
Fair. Yeah. And that's exactly right. And I would say along those lines too, one of the positive things I will say about graded cards is they say that, they say the year right on the label. So for people who don't know much about cards, if they were to see one of those pirate cards or whatever, and they see the year on it, I think it's easier to see, oh, wow, that's that old, rather than if they just saw it, they wouldn't know what they're looking at. So it does help kind of spread the hobby a little better, I think, with creating more of like a museum quality to the cards. With all the negative things you could say about grading companies, I do think that's one nice thing about what they put out,
Yeah. No, I agree.
And I think, if Fanatics can hit their goal, well, I think it's going to be tough, but whatever their goal is of however many Xing, the 10Xing the hobby or whatever, that's great. Like, let's say they come in at, half their goal, right? They 5X the hobby. If 10% of those, or 5% of all those new kids that get into the hobby, if they grow the hobby that much, stay in the hobby and decide that they want to, look at vintage as they get older and have more disposable income, I think that puts, the vintage hobby in a good spot for a little bit longer term.
So we've gone 57 minutes. I've got 4 stacks of player runs sitting next to me that I didn't even
go.
I didn't even show. So I feel like I should at least show. Here's some of my Warren Spawns. Here's my Warren Spawn rookie. I got my Warren Spawn Leaf. Just because I feel like I need to show something. I got my Warren Spawn 51 Burke Ross. I got my 51 Bowman. I got the one Darren gave me, my boy. I love this 52 Tops. That card is such a beautiful card.
You gave him that?
He gave that to me. What? And then this is, I think, a beautiful picture of him. I love that picture.
Yeah,
I've shown my Sayers and Autogram, and so anyway. There.
Darren also gave me a Larry Bird autograph card too.
I was gonna say, I think literally those were 2 gifts I gave. I must have been in a very generous mood that month because I got both of you guys those cards, like in 2 in a row gift cards, like in the same month.
When I opened that, I was like, "What? A Larry Bird auto card? Unbelievable!"
Do you have a Bird Magic rookie yet?
Yeah, I do. I don't have it with me here, but I do. Yep, I have that. I actually, with Larry Bird, I have. If you look on the PSA registry, I have the whole run of Bird, and with Bird, that was one of the few runs that I actually cared about the grade, because a lot of his cards, I wanted a little bit of a chase, a little bit because if you want the Larry Bird run, you could go buy all the cards right now for $1. Most of them, because they're all through the 80s.
Yeah.
But I figure, well, with him, I'll try to find like 10s or whatever with some of those. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mine's
Yeah.
a
So
7.
I got that one in a 7 too. I had an 8, but I sold. I'm going to sell. I haven't sold it yet, but I'm going to put it up for sale because I only need one, and the 7 looks better than the 8, so I'm going to keep the 7.
I've told a bunch of people the story about I can't remember how long ago. It's fairly recent. You were on a collaboration video, and you talked about how you had the second year Larry Bird and the 10, and then when the COVID boom hit, you sold it, and then then you bought it back in the 9, and then with the difference, you were able to buy like a ton of really cool cards.
Yeah, that was a huge boost for me in my card budget. A lot of the best cards I have now are with that came from that sale, because we're talking a card that was hundreds of dollars that went to close to $30,000 in the boom. I mean, just insane. So, yep, that Bird. I'm still doing Bird. I got pretty much all his playing day stuff now. So I'm just working on like post playing days cards. He's got a lot of cool ones too. I'm into that too, post playing days.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we should probably wrap it up. We're over an hour already.
All right, guys. Well,
we did okay for like 10 minutes. We were kind of focused for a second, but I got to say a couple things. First, we haven't really encouraged you to do a shout out and encourage you to watch Adam's channel, Splendid Sports. Your channel is, and I can genuinely say this, your channel is one that when you post a video, I watch it before I go to bed. Like that, there's a lot. I'm like, oh, I'll watch that in the next couple of days. Every video that you post, I watch that day because it's one of the channels that I get the most enjoyment out of watching. And it doesn't matter that some of the stuff you collect is stuff that I don't, and there's some of it is. There's just something that I enjoy about your channel. It must be the guy on the channel that I like the most, that so much. And I've heard a lot of other people say, "What's your favorite channel?" And a lot of people will say Splendid Sports. So
really?
I'm serious. I mean, Mike at Junkwax Hero, I heard him ask the other day in an interview, "What's your favorite channel?" And he goes, "I really like Adam from Splendid Sports." He goes, "That would be I would say that's my favorite channel." Like there are a lot of people who really like your channel. I think our only complaint is we just wish you put more stuff out.
Yeah, I'm in a little slow period right now, but yeah.
But you've got young kids, and we get it. But it's just because we like your channel. So I should have said that earlier, but yeah, I genuinely mean that. You've got a great channel, and there's something about the way you present stuff that I really like. So
yeah, your joy for the cards that you're showing and the topics you're talking about, it really comes through. I think that people really appreciate that.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate. I love your channels too. Greg, you still haven't really. Well, you have been on my channel, with the live we did, but
I got screwed.
No, you got to come on. Whether it's turned.
I would love to.
Yeah,
I would love to come on your channel. Yeah, anytime, any topic.
All right. Well, actually, how about this? Before we leave, we'll get me, Dylan, and you two. We'll do at least a turn back the clock, and then Greg, we could do maybe a 3-and-3 on my channel. I haven't done one of those in a while. So
yeah,
after the national, when things calm down,
Nice. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to get together with you guys. That would be a great matchup. It'd be a good 2-on-2 game.
Yeah, we'll think of a game. We'll have to think of something. We'll do. Okay, that'd be fun.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming on with us, giving us your time, and we'll shut this down. And I had a blast. That was a fast hour for me.
Yeah, it went by really quickly. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We'll catch you guys later. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. We definitely stayed on topic more than normal, but we still came off topic, so that was good. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed again, and I hope you guys enjoyed checking out the cards and listening to the conversation, and we'll talk to you guys later.